In Nigerian political culture, when a powerful man says publicly, "Don't test my loyalty," he is not reassuring you of his loyalty. He's warning you that it has a limit. He's telling you and everyone watching that the private conversation has already happened. The private warning has already been issued, and this public statement is what comes after the private options have been exhausted. Nyesom Wike is not a man who speaks carelessly in public. Every word in that statement was chosen, and every word was addressed to a specific person about a specific debt. Let us decode it, because if you read it as a loyalty declaration, you will miss everything it is actually saying. And missing what Wike is actually saying right now is missing the most important internal signal coming out of the Tinubu administration in the months leading up to 2027. Nyesom Wike governed Rivers State for 8 years, one of the longest and most consequential governorships in South-South history. He built one of the most effective political machines in Nigerian sub-national politics, a machine that delivered rivers of federal allocation, an infrastructure legacy that physically reshaped Port Harcourt, and a patronage network that reached into every local government in the state. In 2023, Wike made a decision that changed the national political landscape. He left the PDP presidential race, having been denied the ticket, supported Tinubu's APC candidacy in a South-South state that had never delivered significant APC presidential votes, and was rewarded with the FCT minister position, one of the most powerful non-cabinet positions in Nigerian governance, because the FCT controls land, contracts, infrastructure, and the daily political geography of Abuja. That arrangement had a price tag, not a stated one, but every political actor in Nigeria understood what Wike gave and what he expected to receive. When he says publicly, "Don't test my loyalty," those words are the ledger of that arrangement being read out in public for the first time. The question this video answers is not whether Wike is loyal. The question is, what did loyalty cost him? What was he promised in return? And what part of what he was promised has not been delivered? Because the answer to that question is the answer to what happens next in Rivers State, and what happens next in Rivers State determines what happens in 2027. Most channels will play that Wike clip and move on. AFRONEWSHQ is going to decode it, word by word, arrangement by arrangement, political debt by political debt, until you understand exactly what that statement means for the APC, for Rivers State, and for every Nigerian watching the 2027 election take shape from the inside out. Subscribe now, because the architecture behind that statement is the most revealing thing to come out of Aso Rock's political circle in months. What Wike delivered. South-South political cover. Wike's open support for Tinubu gave the APC presidential campaign a credible South-South ally at a moment when every calculation showed that the region would not deliver for APC. His presence on APC platforms, his attacks on the PDP presidential candidate, and his visible alignment with the Tinubu campaign narrative gave the APC a regional legitimacy it could not have manufactured on its own. Rivers State political intelligence. Wike's knowledge of the South-South political landscape, its financial flows, its security structures, its local government networks, and its ethnic and communal power dynamics was available to the Tinubu campaign in a form that no APC official from outside the region could not replicate. That intelligence shaped how the APC managed its South-South campaign in 2023. PDP disruption. Wike's departure from PDP and his public attacks on Atiku Abubakar and the PDP establishment contributed to a PDP internal crisis that weakened the party's national campaign. A fractured PDP is a PDP that cannot deliver its full machinery. Wike was a primary architect of that fracture. His political network's neutrality in Rivers. Wike did not deliver Rivers State to APC in 2023. Tinubu received 15.9% there, but he ensured that the political machinery he had built over 8 years did not mobilize against APC with its full force. The difference between what Peter Obi received in Rivers and what he might have received with Wike's machine working against APC is a number Tinubu's campaign team calculated precisely. What Wike was supposed to receive. The FTT Ministership delivered. Wike controls land, contracts and infrastructure in the capital. This is a significant position whose financial and political value is substantial. Non-interference in Rivers. The understanding, never formally stated, was that Wike's political successor in Rivers would be protected, that Fubara, as Wike's chosen governor, would operate within Wike's political framework, that the federal government would not align itself with Fubara against Wike when the inevitable tension between a governor and his godfather emerged. That understanding, as this channel's previous analysis documented in detail, has not been honored. Political relevance in the South-South 2027 architecture. Wike's arrangement implicitly included a role in how APC positions itself in the South-South for 2027, a role that keeps him the region's senior APC interlocutor, the man whose phone calls are returned, whose recommendations are considered, and whose political future within the APC establishment is secured. The signals coming from Abuja suggest that this role is being contested by other political actors who want to position themselves as the South-South bridge to the presidency. Wike's public statement did not arrive from a general sense of grievance. It was triggered by something specific, a decision made in Abuja in the 72 hours before he spoke publicly that he read as a direct violation of the arrangement's terms. I will name that trigger as we move on, because understanding the specific trigger is more revealing than any general analysis of the Wike-Tinubu relationship. It tells you exactly which part of the arrangement Tinubu has decided he can afford to walk back and whether that calculation is correct. The pattern inside APC. Wike's warning is the loudest public signal of internal APC strain, but it is not the only one. In the past 6 months, at least 3 other senior APC figures, governors and cabinet ministers, whose identities I will name as we move on, have made public statements that, read analytically rather than as news events, form a pattern that tells you the APC is not the unified political machine that its official communications suggest, and a pattern that has very specific 2027 implications for whether Tinubu can hold his coalition together when it matters most. What's Wike expected in Rivers, and what happened instead? When Wike left for Abuja as FCT minister, his expectation, shared according to multiple accounts by his inner political circle, was that Fubara would govern Rivers State as a political steward of the infrastructure Wike had built, the alliances Wike had cultivated, and the political norms Wike had established. He expected to remain Rivers State's political authority figure even from Abuja. Fubara governed independently, not in open defiance, not initially, but in ways that made clear he was building his own relationships with Rivers communities, completing projects and claiming them as his own achievements, and gradually establishing a political constituency that owed its loyalty to him personally rather than to Wike's legacy. When the confrontation became public through the State Assembly crisis, the legal battles, and the security incidents that AFRONEWSHQ's previous analysis documented in detail, Wike expected Tinubu to intervene decisively on his side. What Wike received instead was strategic ambiguity, statements of support for both parties, mediations that produced no enforceable outcome, and a federal government that maintained its options by refusing to close them. How the federal government's position on Fubara reads to Wike. From Wike's perspective, the Tinubu's refusal to deploy federal power against Fubara is not neutrality. It is a choice. A federal government that controls the ECFC, the security agencies, the revenue allocation system, and the National Assembly has the instruments to resolve the Rivers State crisis in Wike's favor if it chooses to use them. The fact that those instruments have not been fully deployed reads in Wike's political calculus as Tinubu hedging, keeping Fubara alive as a political option while keeping Wike nominally in the tent. That hedge is the specific insult embedded in Wike's public statement. He is not angry that Tinubu has sided with Fubara. He is angry that Tinubu has refused to side with him while continuing to receive the political value of Wike's public loyalty and his FCT ministry performance. He is being asked to deliver without receiving delivery in return. And a man of Wike's political experience knows exactly what that arrangement is called, and it is not an alliance. The FCT card. Here is the dimension of the Wike-Tinubu arrangement that most political analysis overlooks entirely. The FCT Ministership is not just a reward for Wike's 2023 support, it is a mechanism. Wike controls land allocation, contract awards, demolition orders, and developmental spending in Nigeria's capital city. These are powers that affect the political and financial interests of every major actor in Abuja, including members of the National Assembly, Supreme Court judges, military and security chiefs, and the business networks connected to the presidency itself. A Wike who feels his arrangement with the presidency is being violated is a Wike who sits on top of mechanisms that can create significant discomfort for political actors in Abuja. His public statement is not just a warning to Tinubu, it is a reminder to everyone in Abuja's political ecosystem of what the FCT minister controls and what he can choose to do with it if the arrangement breaks down. The structural condition inside APC. APC is not a party built on ideology, shared policy vision, or organic political affiliation. It is a coalition of political actors assembled around the goal of winning power and held together since 2023, not by shared interests, but by the distribution of positions, contracts, and political access that a ruling party can provide. The moment the distribution becomes contested, the moment there are more claimants to the available positions than positions to fill, or the moment key claimants feel their share is smaller than their contribution warrants, the coalition shows its seams. Wike's public statement is one seam showing. It is not the only one. The relationship between the presidency and several APC governors has shown documented strain since 2024, specifically on the question of federal allocation management, security deployment priorities, and the presidential positioning for 2027 that has left some governors uncertain about whether their political investments in the APC coalition will be protected. The APC National Working Committee's management of off-cycle governorship elections has produced outcomes in at least 2 states, Ondo and Edo, that have left significant internal APC constituencies questioning whether the party's electoral machinery serves the membership or the presidency's preferred factional outcomes. The other public signals of APC internal strain. Name them. Senate President Godswill Akpab's documented positioning inside the ADC leadership crisis, analyzed in this channel's previous video, suggests that a senior APC figure is hedging his political options through a registered third party, which is not the behavior of a man who is confident about his APC political future. Governor Biodun Oyebami of Ekiti, one of the most APC-loyal states in the southwest, made a public statement in late 2024 about the federal government's infrastructure funding commitment to Ekiti that was significantly more pointed than the diplomatic language APC governors typically use when addressing the presidency. The statement was covered as a governance issue. It was, analytically, a political signal. The relationship between the APC Northwest governors and the FTT ministry, specifically around land allocation decisions in Abuja that affect northern business interests, has been a source of documented private friction that has occasionally broken into public statements. This friction is not about land. It is about whether the Northwest APC governors feel sufficiently recognized in the Tinubu dispensation's distribution of political returns. Loyalty economy. Here is the analytical framework that makes sense of all of these signals simultaneously. In Nigerian ruling party politics, loyalty is not a sentiment, it is a currency. It is earned, it is spent, it accrues interest, and it depreciates if not serviced. Wike spent a significant amount of loyalty currency in 2023. He has been receiving returns, the FTT position, the public access to the president, the platform for continued national political relevance. But those returns have not matched the original investment in his own calculation. When a political actor calculates that their loyalty currency is depreciating in value, they have 2 rational options: renegotiate the terms publicly, which is what Wike has done, or begin diversifying their political portfolio, which is what a Wike who does not receive a satisfactory response to this warning will do next. The window between the public warning and the portfolio diversification is the most politically dangerous period in any alliance. Tinubu is currently inside that window. If the pattern I just showed you inside APC is landing differently than how you have been reading these stories individually, drop a comment. Tell me, did you see these as separate news events or did you see them as connected signals? Because the next section is where I show you the specific trigger for Wike's statement and name the other APC figures whose public signals form the same pattern. And one of those names will surprise you. The trigger for Wike's public statement is the reported federal government signaling through back channels and through the positioning of key appointments in the South-South political space that Fubara's Rivers State governorship will not be actively challenged by federal institutional power before the 2027 election. This signal, if accurate, represents the federal government's final decision on the Rivers State question, that a managed coexistence with an independent Fubara is preferable to the political cost of deploying federal power to remove him. For Wike, that signal is the clearest statement yet that the arrangement has been quietly revised without his consent. He went to Abuja as FCT minister on the understanding that his Rivers State political architecture would be protected. The federal government's apparent decision to make peace with Fubara rather than break him is Tinubu's revision of that understanding, a revision that was made without Wike's agreement, implemented through signals rather than statements, and designed to be deniable. Wike's public statement is his response to that deniability. You cannot deny a private signal. You cannot deny a public one. Don't test my loyalty is the public record of a private negotiation that went against him. The pattern inside APC. The pattern of senior APC figures making public statements that function as loyalty warnings rather than loyalty declarations includes, beyond Wike, at least 3 documented cases in the past 6 months. Akpabio's ADC positioning, as previously analyzed, the Senate President's documented involvement in the leadership crisis of a registered third party is the action of a man building a political hedge. A man fully secure in his APC future does not need a registered alternative platform. The Northwest APC governors' infrastructure funding statements. At least 2 Northwest APC governors have made public statements about federal infrastructure funding commitments to their states that are significantly more pointed than routine governance communication. These statements are being read as governance complaints. They are electoral signals. Signals that the Northwest APC political establishment is calculating its 2027 position and is not fully satisfied with what it sees. The Southwest APC internal primary tensions, the management of APC internal elections in Lagos State, specifically at the local government level, has produced public statements from APC factional leaders in Lagos that reveal ongoing tension about who controls the party machinery in a state that Tinubu needs to win in 2027 and already lost in 2023. Lagos APC internal politics is covered as gossip. It is the most important APC internal story in the country. The pattern, taken as a whole, describes an APC whose senior coalition members are simultaneously maintaining public loyalty and privately building their options. That is not a coalition that is fracturing. It is a coalition that is repricing itself. The difference matters for 2027. A coalition that is fracturing cannot be held together. A coalition that is repricing itself can be, if the presidency can meet the new price. Whether Tinubu can meet it is the most important question in Nigerian politics right now. Tinubu's available responses. The 3 options. Option 1. Deliver on the Rivers commitment. Move decisively against Fubara using federal institutional power, EFCC, security agencies, National Assembly pressure, in a way that restores Wike's core political primacy in Rivers State before the 2027 election cycle. This satisfies Wike's core demand and delivers the Rivers political machinery to the APC presidential campaign. The cost: it makes Fubara a political martyr, antagonizes the Rivers State voter base whose support any South-South campaign needs, and signals to every other sitting governor that survival requires federal patronage rather than popular mandate. Option 2. Restructure the arrangement. Offer Wike something of equivalent or greater political value that does not require removing Fubara. a more prominent national political role, a specific 2027 positioning that gives Wike national relevance beyond the FCT, or a formal acknowledgement of his South-South political authority that does not depend on Rivers State's governorship. This is the diplomatic option. Its success depends on whether Wike's real grievance is about Rivers or about recognition. Only Wike knows which one is primary. Option 3. Call the warning and wait. Do nothing and test whether Wike's warning is the prelude to action or the performative expression of a frustration that will subside. This is the option a confident incumbent chooses. It is also the option that converts a manageable renegotiation into an open rupture if Wike's warning was serious. Given Wike's documented political history, his willingness to back Tinubu against his own party, his willingness to wage total war against Fubara, his comfort with high-stakes political conflict, treating his warning as performative is the highest risk option available to the presidency. Wike's most likely next moves. FCT Ministry Performance Adjustment. Wike has the ability to slow walk, complicate, or administratively burden the contract flows and land allocation processes in Abuja that benefit political actors connected to the presidency's broader coalition. He does not need to do anything dramatic. He needs only to make the FCT ministry less cooperative with the networks that depend on it. That leverage is significant and entirely within his ministerial discretion. South-South political repositioning. A Wike who feels the arrangement has broken down will begin, quietly, to signal his availability for a different political alignment in the South-South. He will not defect publicly. He will create distance in his language about the presidency, in his attendance at APC events, in the endorsements he gives and withholds for 2027 South-South races. The opposition will notice. They will reach out, and Wike, who understands leverage better than almost any political actor in Nigeria, will use those conversations to create pressure on the presidency without formally breaking from it. The Rivers variable. The single most consequential move Wike can make is to withdraw his implicit acceptance of the Fubara situation and actively work to destabilize the Rivers political landscape before 2027. A Rivers state in active political conflict going into the 2027 election is a Rivers state that neither APC nor the opposition can reliably deliver. For Wike, that outcome, chaos rather than defeat, may be preferable to watching Fubara consolidate with quiet federal blessing. The honest assessment. Wike's public warning has created a moment of genuine political danger for the Tinubu administration, not because Wike is powerful enough to remove a sitting president, but because the specific assets he controls, the FCT machinery, the South-South political intelligence, the Rivers disruption capacity, are precisely the assets that Tinubu needs to be functioning in his favor in the 12 months before 2027. A loyal Wike is worth more to the APC's 2027 architecture than almost any other single political actor outside the North. An aggrieved Wike is a different calculation entirely. What this moment reveals about Nigerian democracy. We started with 5 words. Don't test my loyalty. We have now decoded everything inside those 5 words. The arrangement they reference, the debt they invoice, the specific trigger that produced them, the pattern of APC internal strain they represent, and the 2027 consequences of the response they are waiting for. But here is the larger truth that this analysis leads to. Nigerian political alliances are not built on shared values or shared vision. They are built on shared interests and shared calculations. When those calculations change, when one party to an arrangement decides the price has risen or the return has fallen, the alliance renegotiates, publicly if necessary, dangerously if the private options are exhausted. What Wike is doing right now is what every major political actor in Nigeria does when their arrangement is under stress. The only unusual thing about it is that he said it out loud, and in a political culture where everything important is said in private, a man who says it out loud is a man who has decided that the public record is his best remaining leverage. You now understand that "don't test my loyalty" is not 5 words. It is a political document, a public invoice, a warning shot, and a renegotiation demand delivered in the only language that a man with Wike's leverage uses when the private conversation has failed. AFRONEWSHQ read you every line of it. Nigeria deserves analysis that goes past the headline. I will see you in the next one.